Hello, today we will talk about a topic that probably concerns the Russian-speaking audience the most. Is Trump abandoning Ukraine, or is he not? Is this foolishness, malice, a cunning long-term strategy, or something else? Before addressing the main topic, about which everyone has already spoken and speculated, let's briefly touch on Germany, since elections have just ended there. We are recording this broadcast on Monday, February 24, 2025, in the evening. The combined union, neither quite centrist nor fully conservative, the Christian Democratic Union, CDU, and Christian Social Union, CSU, won 28.6% of the vote and will form a coalition, but never with the Alternative for Germany, AfD, which received 20.8%, meaning the gap is less than 8 percentage points. Others received around 16%. Books and analyses abound, but the mainstream narrative portrays AfD as ultra-right extremists, with absurd claims like their election success being comparable to the National Socialists in 1932. However, those who won in 1932 actually received more votes, making such comparisons sheer demagoguery. What is AfD's agenda? 2 main points. 1. Immediately stop all illegal migration and enforce immigration control. 2. Return to Russian gas, given that Merkel had shut down nuclear energy, and Germany's economy has been collapsing for 2 consecutive years. Without Russian gas, the country faces catastrophe. For these positions, AfD has been labeled fascist, despite no evidence in their program. This is called democracy. Speaking of democracy, 2 years ago, I made a video titled Post-Democracy. In short, post-democracy means that the facade of democracy remains intact, but inside, it has been completely hollowed out. The elites cling to power, manipulate the people, eliminate competitors, and conduct no honest politics or fair elections. Modern European democracy is a farce. But let's return to Trump and Ukraine. Various perspectives have been offered. Trump is a demon from hell, an idiot incapable of learning, a Nazi, a fool, or a puppet of Putin. Some claim he was recruited by the KGB. These statements are absurd and contradictory. For example, when a respected economist criticizes Trump for imposing a 25% tariff on Mexico, where parts for American cars are assembled, or on Canada, claiming that it destroys economic alliances, his actions immediately stop illegal migration and drug trafficking exactly as intended. This brings us to Trump and Ukraine. To understand what is happening, we must look at the beginning. The situation in Ukraine. In 2014, Crimea was annexed by Russia under President Barack Obama, with Joe Biden, as vice president, overseeing Ukraine policy. The Ukrainian media largely ignored Biden and Obama's role, despite Obama discouraging resistance in Crimea and vetoing lethal aid to Ukraine. Then Trump came and approved lethal aid. Under Trump, U.S. warships patrolled the Black Sea, intelligence flights covered Ukraine's airspace, and the construction of Nord Stream 2 was halted, despite being a European-Russian project. Trump imposed sanctions on companies involved, stopping construction. This pipeline, which bypassed Ukraine, was detrimental to its economy, yet Trump intervened. During Trump's tenure, U.S. forces eliminated Wagner Group battalions in Syria, without requiring high-level approval, something unthinkable before. Yet, Trump's actions for Ukraine were met with silence, no praise, no complaints. Then came Biden. Suddenly, Ukrainian media relentlessly attacked Trump, despite him being out of office. Ukrainian journalists, bloggers, and even Russian exiles coordinated smear campaigns against Trump, with some figures allegedly connected to intelligence services. Why? U.S. aid to Ukraine and corruption. During Biden's presidency, the U.S. Congress stalled a $69 billion aid package for nearly 6 months. The media blamed Republicans, claiming they followed Trump's orders to block Ukraine funding. However, the package included funds for Israel, illegal migrants, and even aid for Gaza terrorists, $10 billion for Gaza, $5 billion for Palestinians, and billions more for migrants. Republicans wanted separate votes on each issue, supporting aid for Ukraine and Israel but opposing funding for Gaza and illegal migrants. Biden refused, insisting on an all-or-nothing package. Meanwhile, Biden had $8 billion in unspent funds already allocated for Ukraine's military aid, which remained unused. Instead, he continued blaming Republicans. So why was Trump attacked in Ukraine? Ukrainian officials have no reason to oppose Trump. The answer lies in the Democratic Party's interests. Reports emerged that U.S. aid funds to Ukraine were being embezzled. Corruption in Ukraine has been an open secret for years, but now evidence surfaced of massive fraud within U.S. institutions. After Ukraine became independent, it sold off much of its Soviet-era military stockpiles. It also mismanaged funds meant for infrastructure, often embezzling road construction budgets, leaving roads poorly built or incomplete only to later be used by Russian tanks. Zelensky and his backers. Zelensky became president not as an independent figure but with the backing of serious political and financial elites. No comedian becomes president without powerful supporters, oligarchs, political figures, and administrators who facilitated his rise. Zelensky is tied to these figures and cannot act independently. Under his leadership, Ukrainian diplomacy made questionable moves, such as voting against Israel at the UN alongside Russia and Iran, damaging relations with Israel and Jewish lobby groups in the US. Zelensky also ignored Trump's request to investigate Hunter Biden's business dealings in Ukraine. Trump merely asked to complete the investigation, which, if properly conducted, would have landed Hunter Biden in jail. Instead, Zelensky refused, knowing that the Democratic Party held power. This led to Trump's impeachment. When Trump returned to politics, he understood the scale of opposition against him. His administration had been undermined by the deep state, and Ukraine's political elite was deeply intertwined with the Democratic Party. This elite class, both in Ukraine and the US, feared exposure and potential criminal charges. The future. Now, Trump is back, and Zelensky faces pressure. He initially offered Trump access to Ukraine's rare earth metal deposits, valued at $500 billion, but later retracted the offer under internal pressure. This indicates that powerful factions in Ukraine, tied to the US deep state, oppose Trump. These factions, corrupt Ukrainian officials, oligarchs, and their American allies have interests that are opposed to the Ukrainian peoples. A true audit of U.S. aid to Ukraine would reveal massive corruption, creating a political earthquake. This is the real reason for the tension between Trump and Ukraine. It is not about policy differences but about financial and political survival. The Democratic Party and the deep state cannot afford Trump's return, as it threatens to expose their dealings in Ukraine. Europe, meanwhile, is no longer democratic, it's a socialist bureaucracy controlled by entrenched elites. The so-called democracy in the West is just a facade. Trump now plays a complex game on multiple fronts. Whether he succeeds remains to be seen, but what is clear is that the Ukrainian government's interests do not align with those of the Ukrainian people. If Trump's allies, like Elon Musk, audit U.S. aid to Ukraine, scandals will erupt. The current Ukrainian government does not want this. Meanwhile, Republicans demand transparency. That is the root of this unexpected conflict, one that even Trump himself may not have foreseen months ago. My advice to those listening: think critically, analyze the facts, and don't fall for propaganda. Ignore emotional appeals, stick to the facts. Best wishes.
All right, let's dive into some pretty murky waters today.
Murky waters, yeah.
We're going to be exploring the relationship between Donald Trump and Ukraine.
Okay.
And we're going to go beyond the usual headlines with this one.
Right.
Our source today is a video analysis that focuses on the years after 2014.
Okay.
And it paints a very different picture than what we usually hear.
Interesting.
So what I found intriguing about this analysis is it suggests that the tensions between Trump and Ukraine go far beyond simple policy disagreements.
Right.
We're talking potential corruption, hidden alliances, and a fight for political survival.
That's definitely something that's worth exploring.
It definitely has my attention.
Yep.
So the video starts by taking us back to 2014 and Russia's annexation of Crimea.
Okay.
And of course, this happened during the Obama-Biden administration.
Right.
And what I found surprising was how this analysis points out the Ukrainian media's silence on the roles of both Obama and Biden in that situation.
You're right, that is curious, especially considering Obama actively discouraged resistance in Crimea.
Yeah.
And even vetoed lethal aid to Ukraine at the time.
Wow.
Then when Trump comes into office, he takes a completely different approach.
Yeah.
He approves lethal aid,
Right.
deploys U.S. warships to the Black Sea,
Uh-huh.
provides intelligence support,
Yeah.
and even halts the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
Now, halting Nord Stream 2 was a massive decision.
Huge.
For those who might not be familiar.
Right.
Nord Stream 2 was a pipeline project designed to deliver natural gas directly from Russia, Germany, bypassing Ukraine.
Yeah.
Not only would this have been a huge economic blow to Ukraine,
Yeah.
but it also would increase Europe's dependence on Russian energy.
Exactly.
So Trump essentially stepped in to protect Ukraine's interests.
Yeah. And yet, despite these actions, the video highlights the muted response from the mainstream media.
Yeah.
Barely a mention, let alone praise for potentially helping a country under threat.
It's very strange.
Very strange.
So we have this curious silence surrounding Trump's actions. Then when Biden becomes president, the tone shifts dramatically.
Oh, wow.
Suddenly, the Ukrainian media is fiercely critical of Trump, even though he's no longer in office.
Interesting.
What could explain such a drastic change?
Well, the video offers a few possible explanations.
Okay.
Some quite controversial.
Uh-oh.
One theory is that these attacks serve the interests of the Democratic Party.
Okay.
Potentially to deflect attention from corruption within their own ranks.
But wouldn't it make more sense for the Democrats to distance themselves from any potential corruption?
Sure.
Especially when it involves a country like Ukraine, which was already under intense scrutiny.
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
However, the video suggests that the situation was more complicated than that.
Okay.
Remember, there were reports surfacing about U.S. aid funds to Ukraine being mishandled.
Right.
Potentially even embezzled.
Yeah.
The timing of these attacks on Trump
Yep.
could have been a way to shift the focus.
Okay.
And create a narrative where he was the one obstructing aid, even though he had actually proved it during his presidency.
So the timing is definitely suspicious.
It is.
The video also delves into Zelensky's rise to power and the intricate web of alliances he formed.
Exactly. Zelensky's journey to the presidency wasn't a solo act.
Right.
He was backed by powerful oligarchs and political figures,
Yeah.
some with controversial reputations.
Okay.
This created a complex system of allegiances.
Yeah.
The video even goes so far as to suggest that this elite, with ties to what it calls the U.S. deep state. Okay, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
U.S. deep state.
Yes.
Could you unpack that term a bit?
Of course.
I'm not sure all of our listeners will be familiar with it.
The term deep state is often used to describe a hidden network of individuals within a government bureaucracy or intelligence agencies who are believed to wield significant power and influence.
Often operating outside of official channels.
Okay.
It's a controversial concept, often dismissed as a conspiracy theory.
Right.
However, the video uses this term to suggest that there are powerful figures within the U.S. government who may have been working against Trump's agenda, potentially even colluding with Ukrainian elites to undermine him.
So are we saying that Zelensky and those supporting him, possibly influenced by this deep state, were actively working against Trump?
It's certainly a bold claim.
Yeah.
But the video points to several incidents that suggest a deliberate effort to undermine Trump.
Like what?
One example involves Zelensky allegedly offering Trump access to Ukraine's rare earth metal deposits.
Okay.
Only to later retract the offer.
Rare earth metals are those essential elements used in all sorts of high-tech applications, right?
Exactly.
Everything from smartphones and computers to military hardware.
Exactly. They're critical for many industries.
Yeah.
And control over these resources is a significant geopolitical factor. China currently dominates the rare earth metal market.
Right.
And the U.S. has been seeking ways to reduce its reliance on Chinese supplies. Ukraine possesses significant deposits of these metals.
Okay.
And if Zelensky did indeed offer Trump access to them, only to later backtrack, it raises serious questions about who was influencing his decisions.
This raises an important question for me.
Yeah.
Could Zelensky's actions be interpreted as a strategic move to balance between the U.S. and Russia?
It's possible.
After all, Ukraine is caught in a precarious position.
Absolutely.
Geographically and politically.
They are. Yeah, that's a very astute observation.
Thanks.
It's entirely possible that Zelensky felt pressured to play both sides.
Right.
Seeking support from the U.S. while trying not to provoke Russia.
Yeah.
He might seen aligning himself with certain figures in the U.S.
Okay.
Those potentially connected to this deep state.
Right.
as a way to secure his own political survival.
So we're talking about a complex interplay of national interests.
Absolutely.
Personal ambitions.
Yes.
And potential corruption.
Precisely. And it's the Ukrainian people who are caught in the middle of this power struggle.
This is already incredibly intriguing, and it seems like we've only just scratched the surface.
Just the beginning.
Let's delve deeper into the specific actions taken during both Trump's and Biden's presidencies, especially concerning U.S. aid to Ukraine.
Sounds good. You mentioned U.S. aid to Ukraine, and that's where things get even more complicated. The video specifically highlights a $69 billion aid package that got stalled during Biden's presidency. The media, according to the video, was quick to blame Republicans, claiming they were following Trump's orders to block it. But if we look closer, the situation was far more nuanced.
That's what I found so fascinating about this analysis. It really challenges us to look beyond the headlines and consider the complexities involved.
Exactly.
So what was actually going on with that aid package?
Well, for starters, it wasn't just about Ukraine. This massive package included funds for Israel, aid for Gaza, and even money allocated for illegal migrants.
Wow.
Republicans in Congress wanted separate votes on each issue. They supported aid for Ukraine and Israel, but opposed the other elements.
So Biden insisted on an all-or-nothing approach.
He did.
It seems strange to bundle those unrelated issues together.
It does.
Especially when there was already $8 billion in pre-allocated military aid for Ukraine. That remained unused.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where the video raises questions about how narratives are shaped and controlled. Why was there such a strong focus on blaming Republicans for obstructing aid to Ukraine when they were actually advocating for more transparency and accountability in the allocation of funds?
It makes you wonder if there was a deliberate attempt to obscure the details of the aid package.
It's possible.
And paint a simplified, perhaps even misleading picture for the public.
That's one interpretation. And this ties back to the potential for corruption that we discussed earlier. If there were, indeed, individuals or groups who benefited from the lack of transparency in this aid package, they would have a strong motivation to control the narrative and prevent any deeper scrutiny.
So we're talking about potential corruption, we are political maneuvering, and the manipulation of information to serve specific agendas.
Exactly.
But what does this all mean for the future? What are the potential consequences of these actions?
The video suggests that if Trump were to return to power, and if his allies were to initiate an audit of U.S. aid to Ukraine, the fallout could be significant. Political scandals.
Oh my gosh.
Potential criminal charges.
Wow.
A real shakeup in the power structure. Both in the U.S. and Ukraine.
And where does that leave Zelensky?
Well,
he's caught between these powerful forces, those potentially implicated in corruption, and those pushing for transparency. He almost seems like a pawn in a much larger game.
That's a good way to put it. Remember, Zelensky is beholden to those who helped him rise to power. The oligarchs and political figures with their own agendas. It's possible he had little choice but to navigate these treacherous waters, making alliances and concessions to ensure his own survival.
The video highlights this by bringing up Zelensky's alleged offer to Trump regarding access to Ukraine's rare earth metal deposits. We discussed the importance of these metals earlier, but I'm still not entirely clear on how this incident fits into the bigger picture.
It's a crucial piece of the puzzle if we consider the possibility that there were factions within the U.S. government working against Trump. And that those factions might have had ties to certain figures in Ukraine. Then Zelensky's offer and subsequent retraction takes on a new meaning.
You're saying it could be seen as evidence of those factions trying to sabotage a potential deal between Trump and Ukraine. Could.
A deal that might have benefited both countries and weakened their reliance on China for those vital resources.
That's one possible interpretation. It suggests that these factions, potentially connected to the deep state the video refers to, were willing to undermine their own country's interests to prevent Trump from achieving a strategic win.
This is starting to feel like a high-stakes spy thriller.
It is.
With hidden agendas. Double crosses, and a global power struggle playing out in the background.
It's certainly a complex situation with far-reaching implications.
Yeah.
And it highlights a crucial point.
That's right.
We can't always take things at face value.
Chuck?
The official narratives, the headlines we read, may not tell the whole story.
Right.
We need to dig deeper, question our assumptions, and consider multiple perspectives.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating critical thinking skills.
It is.
And developing a healthy skepticism toward information.
Especially when it comes to complex geopolitical issues like this one.
And this is where the true value of this deep dive lies.
Yeah.
It's not about telling you what to think.
Right.
But about encouraging you to ask the right questions.
Okay.
And seek out the information you need to form your own informed opinions.
Wow. This deep dive has been quite a journey.
It has.
We started with questions about the relationship between Trump and Ukraine. And now we're grappling with potential corruption, hidden agendas, and the very nature of truth in the digital age.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that information is power.
Right.
And those who control the narrative wield immense influence.
Yeah.
It's up to us as informed citizens to develop the critical thinking skills needed to navigate this complex landscape.
This video analysis we've been discussing has certainly challenged some of my assumptions and forced me to consider perspectives I hadn't fully explored before.
I think that's true for a lot of people.
It really underscores the importance of seeking out diverse sources of information.
Oh, absolutely.
Not simply accepting what we're told at face value.
Exactly. The video doesn't claim to have all the answers.
Right.
And neither do we.
Of course.
It's about raising important questions and encouraging deeper exploration.
Yeah.
If something doesn't sit right.
Right.
Or if you feel like there's more to the story.
Yeah.
Dig deeper, do your own research, and come to your own conclusions.
So, to our listeners, I'm curious, what stood out to you most in this conversation?
What were your thoughts?
What aspects of this story would you want to explore further? Where would you go to verify the claims made in this video analysis?
Yeah, like maybe you're interested in learning more about the specific individuals and organizations mentioned.
Right.
Like the oligarchs who supported Zelensky's rise to power. Or the alleged connections between Ukrainian elites and figures within the U.S. government.
Or maybe you want to delve deeper into the complexities of U.S. aid to Ukraine, examining the details of those aid packages and the motivations of those who supported or opposed them.
Right, and let's not forget the geopolitical context.
Right.
We touched upon the importance of rare earth metals, but there's so much more to unpack there.
Yeah.
The ongoing tensions between the U.S., Russia, and China.
Yeah.
And how Ukraine fits into that equation are all crucial pieces of the puzzle.
And remember, this deep dive is just a starting point.
It is.
We've provided you with a framework for understanding this complex issue.
Right.
But it's up to you to fill in the gaps and draw your own conclusions.
We hope this conversation has sparked your curiosity.
Yeah.
And equipped you with the tools to navigate the intricate world of geopolitics and information warfare.
As we conclude this deep dive, remember one thing. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and never stop questioning the narratives you're presented with.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this thought-provoking exploration, and until next time, keep asking those tough questions.
Absolutely. See you next time.
Who was Michael Veller? Mikhail Iosifovich Veller, born on May 20, 1948, in Kamianets-Podilskyi, Ukrainian SSR, is a Russian writer of Ukrainian Jewish descent. He holds dual citizenship in Russia and Estonia. Veller graduated from Leningrad University in 1972 with a degree in linguistics. Throughout his early career, he undertook various professions, including roles as a children's summer camp counselor, hunter in Taimyr, shepherd in the Altai Mountains, logger, journalist, and teacher. His literary debut, a collection of short stories titled I Want to Be a Yard Sweeper, was published in Estonia in 1983. He gained prominence with works such as Heartbreaker, 1988, Technology of a Short Story, 1989, Rendezvous with a Celebrity, 1990, and Adventures of Majors Vyagin, 1991. His 1993 publication, Legends of Nevsky Prospect, became a bestseller. In April 2024, the Russian Justice Ministry designated Veller as a foreign agent, citing his opposition to the special military operation in Ukraine and his calls for actions that could violate Russia's territorial integrity. At that time, Veller was residing abroad. Veller's works are available on platforms like Amazon, offering readers access to his diverse literary contributions.